What up, nerds? I'm Bryson. You can call me Bammed, and this is CTF and Cigars by Bam CTF, where I light up a cigar and I talk about CTF, security, hacking, and all that kind of stuff. So this week, actually, I'm doing a second episode this week. So normally I just do these on Saturdays. I'm doing an extra episode. I've been going through the advent of Cyber 2. I started a little behind. I'm already several days behind. We're up to the 18th, and I have done days 1 through 4. So I still got a lot to do. So I'm going to do a few extra episodes. First one today. Tomorrow I'll do my regular scheduled episode, and then next week I'll try to do a few extra, and let's see if we can get through the whole advent of Cyber 2. But before we get into that, let's light up a cigar like I always do. So this week I've got, it's AJ Fernandez, the HC Series. It's the Habano Squared. So this is a Toro, so it's 6.5 inches, 52 gauge. It is made from the aged Honduran and Nicaraguan long fillers. This is a medium to full body cigar. It's got the Ecuadorian Sumatra binder and then an Ecuadorian Habano 2000 wrapper. The predominant notes are oak, nuts, and leather. So those come in pretty strong when you start. That oak becomes a bit spicy. There's a bit of cayenne in the second third of the cigar. With that same leather finish, and then I've seen some people say it gets a little bit creamier near the end, so there's still some nuts and spice as the main flavors. There's still some leather, but then it does get a bit creamy at the finish. It's definitely got a odor. The aroma is definitely oaks and nuts. Smells pretty good. Let's light this up. Let's get this cigar going, and then we can start digging into the next challenge in the advent of Cyber 2. All right, yep, that's a good cigar. Getting some of that nutty flavor there with a leather finish. All right, just what I was expecting. Okay, let's have a look at the advent of Cyber. So this is a challenge that is being put on for the holidays by TryHackMe. So if you go to tryhackme.com, you can find the advent of Cyber 2 and go through the challenges. So last Saturday I went through days 1 through 4. So this whole beginning section, I think the first week is focused on web exploitation. So it looks like the first 6 days, then we get into some networking. There's a couple of specials going on by Mr. John Hammond. And then looks like some scripting, reverse engineering. All right. Yeah, so we did the first 4 days of web exploitation. Let's jump into day 5. So now, if you don't like my videos and you watch somebody else's, Darkstar has done the walkthrough solving the challenge for this day on day 5. So this isn't a traditional CTF. There's no points being awarded. We're not, or the people who are doing this aren't looking for winners. This is really just all about education. So yeah, you can watch a video. They've got a video every day that kind of walks through the challenge and how to solve it. So let's look at day 5. So there is a story behind all this. It has to do something with Santa and elves and all that. It's pretty fun to read. I do recommend reading through it. I'm not necessarily going to go through all of this because this show is really just about the hacks. It's not about having fun. It's all about the hacks. But at any rate, Santa got hacked. He set up a new forum. And let's see, from the forum, somebody hacked in. They got the database. They got all the 2020 gifts, the wish list. All right, so somebody got the wish list. They were caught before they released it. But now we want you to see, how did this attacker get in? How did they get into Santa's forum? Then we have a breakdown on what is SQL injection. So it's one of the reasons why I highly recommend this Advent of Cyber Challenge. Every day, as you learn new techniques to solve the challenges, they give you very detailed instructions and walkthrough of what the technology behind the hack, how the hack works, and all that. So, like, we actually start here with an introduction into SQL. So SQL, that is the structured query language. And so, yeah, there's a breakdown on how SQL works, and then how does SQL injection work. They talk about bypassing logins with SQL injection, blind SQL injection, using union select. Then they go into SQL Map, which is a tool that you can find on Kali that will help you run or do some SQL injection. And then using SQL Map and burp. So we used burp in some of the last attacks. So how can you kind of streamline that process using both SQL Map and burp? All right, so that's all there. It's definitely worth reading through. We're not going to take the time today because we want to try to get through 4 days of hacks in an hour. But the challenge, so we're going to visit the vulnerable application in Firefox. Now I've launched the attack box here in TryHackMe on the TryHackMe site. I've also launched the target that I'm attacking, and I've got it pulled up. We can see we've got this forum here, Santa's wish list, or Santa's official forum. And let's see. So using some of the commands and tools covered throughout today's task, answer questions 3 through 6. So Santa reads some documentation he wrote when setting up the application. It reads Santa's to do. Look at alternative database systems that are better than SQLite. Okay, so we already know that he's using SQLite on the back end. That will save us a bit of time when we run SQL Map because we already know the database management system. Also, don't forget there's a WAF. So in case you've forgotten, in order to use SQL Map to bypass a WAF, there's the -- tamper command, which does, there's a few different options, but it lets you sort of modify the strings a bit so that they still work but aren't detected by WAFs. Here's a SQL cheat sheet. So there's a bunch of payloads. It's another payload list, and then an in-depth SQL injection tutorial. Okay, so starting with the actual hacks. So without using brute forcing, what's Santa's secret login panel? So I didn't see anything that actually gave this away. But just by some guessing, if you kind of read through the story, we're talking about the Santa's panel. So with a little bit of trial and error, you can figure out that the secret login is Santa panel. All right, so that was easy enough. Now, how do we log in? Well, it says to visit the secret panel and bypass the login using SQL injection. So let's try that. We log in as Santa, and let's just do an or 1 equals 1. So that will always return true. Let's see if that works, and it does. So we are now logged in as Santa. Very simple, straightforward, easy to do as far as bypassing that. But now we've got the panel up, and we need to do some SQL injection. So let's try just the same string here. Look at that, we just dumped out the database. All right, so yeah, we can see there's a couple things we could do here. We could just count the answers. So there's 22. What did Paul get? Or sorry, what does Paul ask for? And Paul wants GitHub ownership. But then there's a flag and there's an admin password. So there's some other things in here. Now, rather than doing this all manually, let's go ahead and use the tools that we're given. and let's launch Burp Suite. So the web. Switching our proxy to use Burp. All right, let's give Burp a minute to load. Looks like it needs updated. We won't do that right now. Okay, so how are we going to use Burp? Well, if you haven't used Burp, if you're not sure where to go, there is the tutorial up here. It'll walk you through. So we've launched Burp. We've switched our proxy in Firefox. And now what we want to do is we want to capture a query and send it to the repeater. Then we can save it as an item, and then we can pass that item to SQL Map. So if we go back to Firefox, let's see, where did Firefox go? Let's just enter a name here. Oh, you know what? I think I left the interceptor on. Yeah. Okay. All right, we should have our... There we go. There's our request. So I search for Paul. We can see there was a Santa panel, search equals Paul. So this is the request that we want. Looks like we actually have a couple of those. So we can see this search parameter is what we had injected earlier, so that we know that it is vulnerable. Let's go ahead and see. You don't actually. I've got a SQL injection in the refer that might screw things up. So let me just load up another page real quick. All right, so now I've got another search query. All right, that looks good. There's no SQL injection. If it sees that you've already got some injection in your original query when you pass the SQL map, it could cause some problems. So you want to avoid that. So let's send this to the repeater. Here's our request. Now we can save this as an item. Call this Santa panel. All right. So now let's try some SQL map. So what do we know? We know we've got this file. We know that our database management system is SQLite. So with the DBMS flag, we can specify it's SQLite. We need an equals there. And then it's already told us that there is a WAF in place, so we need to add this -- tamper equals space to comment. All right, let's run that, and this should be pretty quick. So it looks like search is vulnerable. Do we want to keep testing for anything else? No, I think we're good with just search. All right, let's see what we got. Looks like it worked. It found the vulnerable thing. So now let's dump some data. So let's look at the command options for SQL map. So there's a lot of options here, but the thing I'm going to look at, there's some things we can do, data we can extract. So here we go. So enumeration. So we can get users, we can get passwords that are in the database, look at tables, columns, etc. Let's just dump all. So we'll run the command we ran before. We'll add a -a to dump everything, and now we have the entire database. So here is our gifts, or sorry, the wish list. We can see there were 22 entries. That was one of the questions. We already figured out what Paul wanted because we'd already dumped this table in particular. But then we can see there is another table. There's a flag, so we can got that flag, and then we can also see the admin's password right there. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. All right, we could definitely explore that more, but that gets us through day 5. Let's go ahead and kill that box and go into day 6. So day 6, we are still doing some web exploitation, but day 6, we're looking at some cross-site scripting. All right, let's clean up over here. Right, we don't need burp for this one. All right, so once again, they go through or TryHackMe gives us a pretty good explanation of what cross-site scripting is, how it works. There are different types of cross-site scripting. They discuss those. We've got stored cross-site scripting. We've got reflective cross-site scripting. How do you detect it? They even bring up some tools. So let's see, they're using OWASP Zap in order to detect some cross-site scripting. Extra stuff on mitigating it. Here's some good cheat sheets. So this is all great information. Make sure you go back and read through all this. And then, all right, so we need to deploy our machine. Looks like it just came up. Let's look at this in Firefox. All right, so you can anonymously submit your Christmas wishes and see what other people wish too. So there's a search query, and there's a place where you can enter your wish. So let's just enter something here. Okay. So I entered test. Great. All right, so let's go ahead and do what the walkthrough told us to do. Let's open up OWASP Zap, and let's take a look at this. Give it a minute to load. Nope, don't want persistence. All right, so let's see. All right, this tells us to run a automated scan. All right. Nope, I don't want updates. All right, let's launch this. So we're doing an automated attack. Let's get our URL. That into Zap. And let's see if they told us to do anything else. Nope. We're just going to do the simple, make it all automated with defaults. Try that again. There we go. All right, so a couple things. I don't know if you saw that. Where did it go? Okay, so one question was asked was what query string can be used to craft a reflected XSS, and that is this Q equals zap here. So that's one of the answers. And it's asking what vulnerability type was used to exploit this application. So this is cross-site scripting. I mean, it told us that in the description, and specifically a stored cross-site scripting. So how many alerts did we get? Should be 2. Right site, right? All right, let's double check, make sure we did all this right. All right, so there's our site. And attack. All right, so I think I copy pasted something wrong earlier, but we can see it now. So we've got 2 actual vulnerabilities here. There's a persistent cross-site scripting and a reflected. Just so the first question was about what vulnerability type was used to exploit this application, and it is the persistent, or if you go through and read the article and how they describe it, as a stored cross-site scripting attack. We already realized that this Q was the parameter. Launched OWASP, ran it, we found 2, and then let's see if we can exploit it ourselves. So this is a pretty simple day. Let's just see if we can exploit it. So how can we want to make an alert appear. So if you aren't familiar with JavaScript, if you haven't done XSS, they should have somewhere up here, there's a string you can always just copy. So let's try this. This is about the most basic cross-site scripting string that you'll find out there, and it worked. We did it, and now we get this that pops up. And there's other people doing the same thing. Well, this may have been Zap that may have done all this. Yeah. Stored a bunch of strings. And then when we reload the page, we're going to get all these pop-ups from our stored cross-site scripting. All right, so that one was pretty easy. Cross-site scripting, mark that off the list. We are now experts. All right, let's shut that machine down. So we got through 2 pretty quick. Let's move on to, we finished days 5 and 6. Let's look at day 7. Now, day 7 is a little bit different. Instead of a deploy button, we've got a download button. We're looking at Wireshark on day 7. All right, so it's 6 a.m., Elf McSkitty's clocking, blah, blah, blah. There's more story. Like I said, this is good stuff. You should read it, but I'm all about the hacks. So let's just get straight to the hacks. We're talking about TCP IP here. We're talking about different protocols, talking about Wireshark, and a very brief summary of Wireshark. Oh, yes. Used to be called Ethereal. I remember that. That's how old I am. I remember when it was Ethereal. And how to use filters, exporting data. And let's see. Here we go. All right. So let's start off. Let's open PCAP1 in Wireshark. Let's find the IP address that initiates an ICMP ping. So let's switch over to Wireshark. All right. So we're looking for a ping. Just add a filter for ICMP. And we can see here Wireshark's decoding everything for us. We don't need to really dig into the packet that much, because we can see right here there's a ping, we've got a request, and then a reply. So who made the request? This is the IP that made the request. Let's switch back to our browser, and we can see there we've got the IP and we've got the first answer. So now the second one. If we only wanted to see HTTP GET request in our PCAP, what filter would we use? And here's the filter. So all the display filters in Wireshark are all pretty straightforward. They follow the same sort of format with the protocol, and then they break out the protocol. So in this case, http.request.method, and then it uses the equals in order to indicate, you know, something is equal to something, and then GET. So in HTTP, there are different methods. So the first part of your HTTP request is called a method, and there's GET, there's POST, there's options, there's a PUT, there's a few others. Most of the traffic you're going to see is either going to be a GET or a POST most of the time for web stuff, especially if you're just browsing in a browser. Those other methods are more used for different web applications, or different protocols use them. But at any rate, so we can set our method to GET. We copy that and let's put that in Wireshark. And we can look for the next. So the next filter, apply that filter. We want to find the name of the article, that the IP address, and there's the IP that IP visited. All right, so let's switch back to our Wireshark here. We're going to change our filter. So we're just looking for GET requests, and then we've got an IP address that was provided in the challenge. So we want to also add in a filter for that. So we will do an and. We got IP address equals, paste that IP in there. All right, so now we can see all the web traffic. We can very quickly see what URLs were accessed by this IP address. Starts off with just with a get slash, and then there's all of the, you know, CSS and image and JavaScript and whatever that you always that your browser will pull down whenever you access a page that has that stuff embedded into it. But then if we keep browsing, we'll see this post. Or sorry, is a GET under post reindeer of the week. The question was what article was accessed, and then the answer is reindeer of the week. All right, so now we want to look at PCAP2. Look at the data. Use a filter would be useful. Okay, so we're looking for captured FTP traffic, and there was a password leaked during the login process. So let's go back to Wireshark and let's switch to our second PCAP. So we got PCAP2. We don't need that HTTP filter anymore. Let's look for FTP. So we can just filter for FTP. You could filter by port if you wanted to. FTP is on port 21. All right, so what do we got? We've got somebody closing, somebody exiting, and then here we have somebody logging in, and it's all just right here for us. So User Elf McSkitty logs in, specifies the password, and the password is right here for us as well. Plain text password fiasco. FTP by default uses clear text passwords. If you care about what's on your FTP server and you don't want people stealing your passwords, don't use FTP. Use FTP over SSH, SFTP, or something else. But there's the question to, or the answer to that question. Plain text password fiasco. And then continue with our analysis of PCAP2. What is the name of the protocol that is encrypted? So let's go back to our PCAP here. Let's just go up to the top because this is real obvious. So I was going to go through and try to analyze what protocols are used in this PCAP and all that, but they made it very easy. The very first 2 packets in this PCAP are SSH. So the answer is just SSH. Again, all these challenges are designed. Wait, I didn't switch to Wireshark. My bad. Hopefully you didn't miss too much of that. But yeah, you can see here at the top, SSH is the encrypted traffic. And just in case you missed it, because I'm not sure when I switched back from Wireshark to the browser, here is that password if you just filter for FTP. So you can see that there. All right, now let's go back to our browser and look at our final question for this day. So we're going to look at PCAP 3. What is Elf McSkitty's wish list? What is on his wish list that will be used to replace Elf McEager? So we're switching back to Wireshark. Let's pull up this PCAP. All right, so we see there's some SSH in here. There's some HTTP. Now, we can look through this HTTP traffic. Let's see if this will show up. Let's follow this HTTP stream. And let's see. It's not in that stream. But that's fine. Let's make this a little bit easier. What we can do under the file menu, and I'm not sure this is getting captured, but under file we can export objects and export HTTP. So it doesn't look like OBS is capturing that part of the app, but that's under file. Export objects, export HTTP. And let me see if I can get this to show up here. There we go. Okay, so these are HTTP objects that have been downloaded in this PCAP, and we can actually see the whole files. So what we can do is we can take this christmas.zip and save it. And then that's going to give us a zip file. Now, let's see. Let's go back to Wireshark here. All right, give me a second here. Let me find that christmas.zip. Let's see, where did I put that? There it is. Okay, let me share that screen now. Let's see, where did I put that? There we go. So this is the contents of that christmas.zip. So there's some images, there's Operation Arctic Storm, and then here's Elf McSkitty's wish list. So let's share that screen. And here we go. So here's the file that was downloaded, and we can see that Elf McEager is going to be replaced by one rubber ducky. Also looks like Elf McSkitty's getting some pineapples. Nice. I ordered one back at Thanksgiving, and it's finally shipping today. So that'll be fun to play with. Maybe I can go through over that later. When I get that, I've got a new Wi-Fi enabled grill I want to take a hack at. So we'll maybe get a chance to play with that later. All right. So anyway, that's the answer. Elf McEager is getting replaced by a rubber ducky. All right, so that does it for, what was that, day 7? So now we're on to day 8. All right, let's deploy this. Let's see what is day 8 all about. So day 8, what is under the Christmas tree? There's a fingerprint here. I wonder what that could be about. All right, so after a few months of probation, intern Elf McEager, I guess he hasn't been replaced by a rubber ducky yet. He's passed with glowing feedback from Elf McSkitty. During this meeting, Elf McEager asked for more access to the best festival companies, that's TBFC, to their internal network as he wishes to know about the systems he's sworn to protect. Elf McSkitty was reluctant to agree. However, after Elf McEager's heroic actions in recovering Christmas, Elf McSkitty soon thought this was a good idea. This was uncharted territory for Elf McEager. He had no idea how to begin finding out this information for his new responsibilities. Thankfully, TBFC has a wonderful upskill program covering the use of Nmap for Elf McEager to enroll in. So this, aren't there 2 L's in enroll? There's a typo there, I think. Anyway, so yeah, Nmap. So we've got a description on using Nmap. So we start the attack box. We've already got our attack box up and running over here. We've deployed our target. Today's objectives is using Nmap. So they give you a basic of Nmap, talk about the different types of scans, the TCP scan, a SYN scan, connect scan. There's some different timing templates. Talks about Nmap scripting engine. At the time of this writing, the NSE's come up with 600 scripts, which can be found here. So there's a link to those for you as well. Walk through a little bit on how to use some of the scripts, some additional types of scans, and so on. So this might take a few minutes because Nmap can take a little bit of time, but all right. So here's just to start off with our first question: when was Snort created? This was easy. I just searched Google and got an answer right there. So that one was pretty simple. Didn't require any hacking. But if you don't Google it first try, then you're probably doing it wrong. All right, so we're going to use Nmap on the machine. Looks like it's still deploying because we don't have an IP yet. What are the port numbers of the 3 services running? So let's see if our target is deployed yet. Okay, so we're waiting on the site to deploy our target machine. And there's not much we can do until that's up and running. It's not letting me deploy. It's at 48% here. All right, feels like something's stuck. I'm going to reload the page. All right, now let's deploy. Okay, so don't know what went wrong there, but we are deploying it now. And machine started. It'll give us a minute here. And then we should have an IP to target with Nmap. Wait, did I switch on the right day? This is all talking about FTP. Ah, no, I'm not. I switched to day 9. All right, let's terminate that one. Whoops. Somehow I got on the wrong day. So we're looking at day 8. Let's deploy that one. If I did everything right on the first try, this just wouldn't be CTF and Cigars. Of course, I do that on purpose to show you that, one of the core aspects of any kind of hacking involves trial and error. So things won't work on the first time. That's expected. That is normal. We're still waiting on this machine to boot up. All right, so as soon as we get that IP address, we can do a quick scan. This is also going to be a pretty short one. Just has you run a couple commands, get the answers, and there's even some where it just says run this thing, but there's no output that's expected. All right, 10 more seconds and we'll have an IP address. All right, let's just do a very basic Nmap scan without any options. Let's just run that and see what we get. And there we go. We've got 3 ports open. Make sure you get the formatting correct to get the answer correct. It tells you that, let's see. Okay, use Nmap. 3 services running, list them in order, lowest to highest, separated by a comma. So we've got 80, 22, and 3389. So those are the things that are open. Run a scan with the PN to ignore ICMP. So that's, we can run that again, although it won't change our output. The point of that is, so the way Nmap works, when you first tell it to scan a target, so whether it's a single target or a subnet, so you can use CIDR notation, or there's a few different ways you can list different IPs to scan, so you can scan an entire network at once rather than a specific host. And it will do, first thing it does is discovery, and the default way of doing that is via ICMP. So it'll just send out a ping to all of the IPs that you've specified, and then it only continues scanning if it gets that response back. So it checks to make sure the host is up first, so we don't send out a lot of needless noise. But in some cases, and your network maybe, ICMP is being blocked, so you can use the -pn to skip the ICMP and just scan everything, whether or not you have any evidence that it's up. All right, so there's a few different scans we can run. It tells us to try -a, tries us to tell -sv, compare the outputs. Not going to do all of that because that can take some time. And sitting here watching Nmap wait isn't all that entertaining. I will do the SV. I won't do the A. That's the longest. So A for aggressive. Does an aggressive scan. That's going to give you the most information about the host that you're targeting. But we want to know what the distribution is, and so SV, that will pull down the headers. It'll do a little bit of fingerprinting, so we're not just, it checks the service headers, so we're not just seeing that port 80 is open. It's actually doing some extra checking, pulling down the headers and trying to get more data. So in this case, we can tell that it's Apache HTTPD 2.4.29 and it's running on Ubuntu. We can also see what version of OpenSSH that we're running, and then we've got XRDP running. So what distribution are we using? We're using Ubuntu. Now it tells us to use the HTTP title NSE script in order to figure out what the name or figure out what this website might do. So I think there was a link somewhere up here for that. Okay, there's not. So we can just Google that and how to use it. So it's HTTP title NSE. So this will tell us how to use this this script. There's some examples here, and it's already actually built in. There's a flag for that, just the -sc. So let's go back to our Advent of Cyber. We'll run our command again. Add the SC. Give that a second, and it's going to give us the title of the page that we found on the server. Looking at the chat, looks like Red Anthrax wants to know how to get in the kernel. That's pretty simple. You just need to try harder. And if that doesn't work, maybe RTFM. Those will usually do it. Try harder, RTFM, and and don't panic. Those are the ways that you get into the kernel. All right, so we're gonna let this run another minute. While this is running, my battery's getting low. Uh-oh. All right, let's hope my battery doesn't die while this finishes. But at any rate, it's going to give us back a title of the site. It'll tell us that it is a blog. That's the answer, blog. We can use some additional scripts to do some additional things. So that's there. Check that out and have fun with that. And my battery's about to die. I did not plan ahead well enough, apparently. So I think that's going to do it for today. Tomorrow I will do days 9 through 12. And then I'm going to try to get caught up next week before Christmas. So we'll see how that goes. Just a reminder, coming up January 14th, we do have a CTF. So BAM CTF is hosting a CTF sponsored by Huntress Labs. Okay, yeah, we can see real quick. You can see here that this finally did run, and we've got a title here, TBFC's internal blog. All right, so I'll be back tomorrow for the next few days. CTF coming up January the 14th. Check out bamctf.com for links to all my content. Follow me on Twitter at bamctf, and I will see you again tomorrow. So thanks for everything, and don't forget, next time you get stuck, to try harder, don't panic, and always RTFM. Thanks, and I'll see you tomorrow.